Welcome to ACT Basic Training, Session 1. This is Donna Quisenberry from Q2 Database Consulting Services. What we're looking at here is ACT version 17 Premium, and this happens to be our custom ACT template for mortgage professionals. And we have been ACT certified consultants for over 16 years. And this is one of our focus verticals, if you will, is the mortgage industry. This training is applicable to any industry, but for the sake of the purpose of this training video, I will be going over some things that are very specific to the mortgage industry. But again, you can apply this basic training knowledge to really any industry using ACT. So the first thing is this happens to be ACT Windows, but ACT is available in the cloud as well. We offer ACT hosting services, and we also are ACT certified consultants and resellers, so we can also provide ACT cloud hosting services. This custom database, we call it iLoan, is again specifically designed for the mortgage industry. The nice thing though is that ACT is such a flexible product that no matter what industry you're in, we can help you create the template that you need. And also you can create fields, make changes to the layout, and do those types of development functions yourself if you wish. So it's a very flexible product, and again, you have the ability to add fields and work with your layout design. This is the very first session for ACT training. This is basic training. So what we're going to start with is just general navigation. When you open up ACT, at the top you have a menu toolbar, and if you roll your mouse over that menu toolbar, you'll see a lot of different options. Okay. The other thing of note here is the help area. There are feature tours, online manuals, and in the feature tour area, there's some videos, and those are quite helpful. So if you want to learn on your own about ACT, I recommend that you do go through the feature tours and also take a look at the online manuals. If you need help with ACT, you have a lot of resources as well. You have knowledge-based articles and live chat depending on your support level. And also for our customers, we provide various levels of support. And with most of the ACT sales that we do, it includes unlimited SwiftPage help desk support. So there's a lot of resources here for not only learning, but also for support. Okay, the next row of icons here is really some of the most common tasks that you perform in ACT. So they're the big buttons. This can be customized, but I do recommend that if you're just starting out with ACT, you leave it as the standard set of icons up here, and then over time, certainly you can make changes to that if you need. Over to the far right, you'll see this search window, and this is the universal search area in ACT. It came out in a few versions ago, so it's on the newer side of the ACT product. But it's a very powerful way to provide a search throughout your entire database. So in the mortgage industry, let's say you wanted to find out everyone that you had talked to about an FHA loan. You could just type in FHA and hit go, and this search is incredibly powerful. It's going to search your entire database, not only every field in your database, but also anything that you have in notes, history, as well as if you have any documents attached to this contact record, it will search in the documents. So it's incredibly powerful, and all you would do is hit go, and then it would search for that phrase or those letters in your database. You can also use things like wildcard. So you talk to somebody about FHA, and you know it was in 2010. So you can use that wildcard function to really fine-tune that universal search. So that will search every record, every field, every note, history, calendar item, and even inside any attached documents in your ACT database. This next row here is the way that you would toggle between what's called the detail view and the list view. So the detail view is when you open up ACT, normally you're going to be looking at a single contact record, and in the detail view you will see the contact information, name, address, phone number, as well as all the tabs below that are here that relate to that contact record that's open. So this entire section, the top area, including all the tabs below, is a contact record. Again, these tabs here relate to this contact. So if you went to history, anything you see in history relates to this particular contact. List view is, if you click on list view, it's more or less, a good description is it's kind of like looking at a record in an Excel format. And this is very interesting when you do things like, if I want to say look up all my contacts, then this comes back in list view, so you're seeing all of them in this type of view. So then I can go back to detail view and look at a single record, look at one record at a time. So that's the difference between list view and detail view. Another thing while I'm at it is this lookup function is very powerful. I want to just go back to that original record that I had open. So if I go to lookup previous, you'll see the last list of the most recent lookups that you've done, and I know that the person's last name started with J-O-R-D, so I went to that previous and I got back to my record. So that's a really time-saving way to go back to previous contacts that you had looked up. Okay, and then the rest of this toolbar here is, for one thing, let's do look up all contacts again. And it'll show you here the number of contacts in your database. So I did a lookup of all contacts, so now I see all of them. If I go to detail view, it's also going to tell me this is record 1 of 1315. So that's what this record counter basically is for. So let me go back to my designated record here. And then you have some other toolbar items. One thing that's also important to note is there is a save button here, but everything in ACT is an autosave. So if I type in a company name, for example, and hit tab, that's all you have to do. You don't have to also hit the save button. As soon as you tab out of that field, it auto saves that information that you put into that field. Okay, and then you have some other functions, and if you want to print the information from this screen, and if you roll your mouse over, you see some other options there. This field here is basically where you would select your layout. So again, this is the custom layout that we've done for the mortgage industry. You can see a commercial real estate one here too. At any rate, that is where your custom layouts can show up. So as you can see, you can have more than one layout. Sometimes a team will have their salespeople looking at one type of layout, and then they'll have their operational or marketing people looking at a different layout because maybe they don't need to see all the same information. So if I just click to the basic contact layout, that will refresh the screen, and you'll just see a basic layout. This is one that comes with ACT out of the box. But again, we have the custom layout, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to that custom layout. This next item here is sending a text message. That is an add-on to ACT, and we have a separate video that talks about that, but you are able to go to one or many contact records and send a text message directly from ACT. So it's quite a powerful additional feature. This icon here is for what's called SwiftPage e-marketing. There is a very powerful marketing component to ACT, which I will talk about. If we don't get it in this session, we talk about it in the second session. So there's a couple of options there. So this is a good time to kind of step back for a minute. I've shown you, this is what ACT looks like, and the general navigation here with the menu toolbars, and you've got some icon toolbars. But let's stop for a moment. I always like to get you going because people are so anxious for information about how they, what buttons they actually click. But something that's even more important than that is to step back for a minute and to understand, why use ACT? What's so great about ACT, and why would you want to use ACT versus just using, let's say, your Outlook? A really good description I heard one time is ACT is like Outlook on steroids, so I think that's pretty accurate. ACT is a fully and highly customizable database tool where you can do day-to-day tracking of your interactions with your contacts, whether it be prospects, people that are in the process of a loan or some kind of a transaction with your company, people that have closed a loan or have completed a transaction, as well as day-to-day contact with your strategic partners. So in the mortgage industry, that would be your realtors, your CPAs, financial planners. You also have vendors and inside operational people that you deal with, such as underwriters and processors and things like that. So ACT really is the central nervous system of your day-to-day business in terms of communicating with all these people in your world. And some of those components are recording, phone conversations. So you're able to do that. You're able to do that on a specific record in ACT. So when you talk to somebody, you can make notes or record history about that conversation. You also have the ability to have an interface with many email systems, including Google and Outlook. And that will allow you can still use those separate email systems, but with the interface, when you send and receive email, those emails also get noted and stored to that contact's record. So it's very easy for you to find those email communications back and forth on the person's contact record. A lot of people have, maybe, handfuls or hundreds of Outlook folders. So instead of that, actually everything gets connected to the contact record, and it makes it very seamless and streamlined. The other thing that's very powerful about ACT is since you can highly customize it, you can have all the fields that you would need in your business to track and do data mining. So in the mortgage industry, what's incredibly powerful about that, for example, is the ability to quickly look up people that fit a certain criteria. For example, let's say you came into work today and you see that there was a pretty major program change on one of the conventional loan types. So then you're able to go into your ACT database and very quickly pull up everybody that's a closed loan with a rate over 5.25, that has a certain occupancy and maybe even a certain loan amount, and pull those people up very quickly, and then communicate to them by creating an email template and getting that out the door. And you have this very quick cycle on finding people that fit a certain criteria and then communicating to those people. So again, that applies to any industry, but in the mortgage industry specifically, the reason that is so key is that you are able to look up that information in other places. So for example, your loan origination software. The difference is what you'll do there is you can find people that fit a certain criteria and pull them up and maybe export them to Excel, and then you'd have to import that into your Outlook or maybe send an email from that report. So that's quite a few steps involved. In ACT, there's a lot less steps involved because you're able to actually store the information in ACT, pull up and report on or do a lookup on the information in ACT, and then actually create a quick email template in ACT and send it. So again, it's incredibly powerful in terms of how much streamlining you're able to do with your day-to-day tracking and communicating. The other element in ACT that's incredibly powerful is that there is a shared calendar system. So I'll touch on that a little bit too. Just got to make sure that this session is about an hour. So there is a fully functioning calendar system in ACT that looks and feels and just operates much like the Outlook calendar. So if you're used to that, and what's really nice about it too is that if you have a team of people, it's a shared calendar. So you can schedule things on each other's calendar. You have visibility to each other's calendar if you so desire, and that also is very powerful for collaborating. While I'm on that subject, because a lot of people naturally say, well, I don't want people on my team to see my calendar. There are a lot of security levels in ACT and different ways to make things secure. So, for example, one user logs in, he or she can't see anything that any other user is doing with their own records. Same thing with the calendar system. You also can do things like maybe you want your calendar to be shared with your assistant because he or she is, managing your calendar for you, but you may have a private appointment. The nice thing is when you schedule items in ACT, you can mark it private so that other people, even if they have access to your calendar, can't see specifically what the appointment's for. Okay, so far we have, day-to-day tracking, very customizable fields for specific data tracking. You have the interface with email so that everything gets stored on the contact record, and then you have the shared calendaring. And then one of the other really large elements is marketing. So there are, in ACT, you can create an email or letter template and quickly merge that to one or thousands of records at a time. With the email, though, what we have to be aware of these days, especially, is you really can't. ACT doesn't care if you're merging to thousands of records. ACT can merge all day long. The issue, though, is that your email service provider is, you're probably going to get in trouble with them, and you may even get blacklisted if you're sending thousands of emails at a time. So ACT has a service called eMarketing that is a white labeled ICANN spam compliant service that works right from ACT. So let's say you want to pull up all of your realtors and send them some kind of a market update, and let's say you have hundreds of realtors in your database. You're able to use this eMarketing function and pull those realtors up in ACT and send the email out, but it will not go out through your company's email server. It goes out through a separate white labeled service that is connected to ACT. Now that service, the eMarketing service, you get 500 contacts for free for that service when you purchase ACT. If you want any more than that, there's some tiers, some tiered pricing based on the quantity that you want. We also train on the eMarketing, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of these other areas we're not going to get into today with our first session. But I just wanted to make you aware, from a 50,000 foot view, those are all the major components that ACT is really, powerful for, and it's consistently rated as one of the easiest CRM tools to use. So that's as important as having a lot of solid features. And you'll notice, so we're going to go ahead and get back to this record, but that is the Reader's Digest version of what's the big deal about ACT and why would somebody want to use it, are all those elements that I just listed. So we'll get back to the screen here, and over here on the left, in terms of looking up records, this is one of the standard ways to look up a record. So if I can type in any or part of somebody's name and hit go, and that's going to go and find anybody that has Smith in my database. So I happen to have 18 of them. So then what I can do is say, oh, it's this person named Matt Giovia Smith, and just double click that, and it will go to that record. Okay, so this is the most common way that you're going to use just to find a single contact record. And then over on the left is, we call it the navigation bar. So as you can see, there's all these different areas in ACT. The contacts is the area we're in now. Groups is where you can create groups so that you can have different categories in your database. In the mortgage industry, that would be, examples of that would be, you have certain prospects that are in credit repair mode. You also might have things like, apartment dwellers, or VA, or people that fit a certain criteria. You can create a group and put them in that group. That way, it's very easy for you not only to have visibility into the people that are in that particular group, but also you can do things like, an email merge and send something specific to that group that applies to their particular condition. So that's groups. And then I'm not going to go over all these. I'm going to go over the ones that we include in the basic overview. The calendar I had already mentioned. So if I click on calendar, you'll see that I have a monthly, weekly, daily view. And as I mentioned, it works and feels and looks just like an Outlook calendar. The difference is you can have a team functioning on this calendar and be able to delegate things to each other because it's a shared calendar. There also is a way to synchronize your calendar with your Outlook calendar and or your Google calendar. And a lot of times that's very popular because, a lot of people already have their Outlook or their Google syncing to their phone. So you do have that seamless connection between your ACT calendar and your Outlook calendar and your phone. Now, a lot of times this is the part in the training where somebody usually asks, well, if I'm using my Outlook calendar, why do I care about using the ACT calendar? And the answer is that everything in ACT is connected. So I mentioned before that when you send and receive emails, it shows up in ACT history. We can see here on this record when an email was sent from Outlook to this email address, that automatically would attach to the ACT record. So the same kind of methodology and philosophy applies to the calendar. So when you schedule using the ACT calendar, it goes not only on the calendar, because that's where you work from every day, but also on, it's called the Activities tab. So at any time, you can go to a contact record and look at history, see what has been recorded and completed for somebody, or contact, and then you can go to activities and see things that have not been scheduled yet. So there's a lot more to the calendaring that we won't get into in this session, but it's a very powerful and user-friendly feature in ACT. The task list is related to the calendar. It's basically I like to call it the Excel way of looking at tasks. So you can filter and say, I only want to see my tasks for today, or just run these filters for specific time frames that you want to see. The history list is a way to see, in your whole database over the last 30 days, who in the database has had any completed activities and what those completed activities were. And again, you can filter and get very specific about this. And then you'll notice that in most places in ACT, you'll see a printer. So you can, click this and print whatever screen you're on. You can export whatever you've reported here out to Excel. So it's very flexible in that sense. I'm not going to go over too much with opportunities right now because the focus of this training is for mortgage professionals. We don't use that. I talked a little bit about the e-marketing. The marketplace is a place where you can go to see more information about ACT add-ons. Reports is just as it sounds. Excuse me. And then there's also a reporting dashboard as well as a search area and a welcome screen. But in terms of the search, most people are using this section here or using a universal search. There's also a way to search by specific fields. So we get into that in the second session. So we're going to go ahead and finish up the time here by taking you through the top part of an ACT record and then also going through, I call it the tab tour. So basically with this layout, when you add a new contact record, there's some very important fields for you to pay attention to. So we're going to go ahead and add just a record here. And to add a record, you just click on New. And I'm going to say this is a new referral that you got from one of your realtor partners. It's a new lead that they'd like you to follow up on. So let's say you receive a voicemail and you get some very basic information about somebody from your realtor partner. Now, if you have the texting function, this is also where, once you talk to them, you find out if it's okay to text to them. And you'd finish the rest of their contact information accordingly. Okay, so very simple and very basic. Here are some fields, though, that you want to pay a lot of attention to. The first one is the ID status. So again, regardless of what industry you're in, the ID status is something you want to make sure that you are entering on every single record. In the mortgage industry, this is what that list would look like. And what this represents is at a very high level, who is this person to your business? So if I'm a loan officer, I would, come in here and I would put that this is a prospect. This is a new prospect that one of your partners sent to you as a referral. But if it is a realtor record or a CPA or attorney, etc., you would use the ID status accordingly to record what type of contact this is. That's incredibly important because when you are looking up information in your database, they say garbage in, garbage out, or nothing in, nothing out. In ACT, it's very easy to do a lookup. I can do a right click and do lookup ID status and indicate to ACT what type of ID status I'm looking up. So here I'm indicating that I want to look up all my prospects. So then I would hit OK, and ACT is going to come back and report all of my prospects. So it tells me I have 393. This is why this categorization here through ID status is so important. It's your 50,000 foot identification of what this contact is to you. So again, and for different industries, you would just fill this list in with the types of contacts that you commonly work with. This is specific to the mortgage industry. The other field that's really important is the marketing opt-in field. So you're able to, when you're going to send out some marketing, you could do a lookup and only find the people that have opted into your marketing. Okay. The rest of the fields over here, very self-explanatory. The last set of fields that are incredibly important, though, is to keep track of how you got this contact. So you'd want to enter in a list of your most common realtor partners and have that in this refer name section so that you can record that. You have these other choices too, who did the customer come to you from, and you would indicate that accordingly. Okay, so when you add a contact record, obviously the general contact information is going to go in there, but you must pay attention to the ID status, the marketing opt-in. The default is that they're opted in unless they opt out, and then the referral information. And then the next thing that you should always do is start recording your information. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but if I roll my mouse over this thick gray bar, it turns into a bidirectional arrow, which means I can pull this section up or down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these tabs up. You can do the same thing. Anywhere you see a thick gray bar, you can change the size of your panels. So if I bring this up, these are all of the tabs that relate to this particular contact. Okay, so this is a new lead that I just got. So the next thing I want to do is I want to come to the very top here and click on the History tab button. And when I click that, it's going to bring up a dialog box that says to record history. So I can say call received. Maybe I'll put in here new lead. And Ruth, who is the referring realtor partner, left me some information about this lead. So I'm just going to make those notes here. So you would just make notes about what the realtor partner had mentioned to you about this person. And then right at the bottom, you're able to click the follow-up button and schedule a follow-up. So, you might say, well, it's at the end of the day today. I'm not going to be able to call her today. So I'm going to schedule a follow-up for tomorrow at 10 a.m. And again, this looks and feels just like any regular calendar system. and then we can go ahead and say okay. So you have also prioritization, color coding, alarms. You also, if you're working with a team, maybe you have your assistant doing the initial follow-up, and you can delegate this to your assistant. And at any rate, we're just going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit OK here. So what I've done now is I've electronically stored the notes or the information that I have about this person, which will go into history, and then I also have scheduled the follow-up. So that follow-up goes on the activities tab, but it also goes on the calendar. So when I come into work tomorrow, and I'll go to the daily view here, I have on my calendar to call Susan Taylor and follow up with her. So then what I would do here is right click, go to contact, and then give her a call. As I'm talking to her after the call, I would click on this box here on the activities tab, and then I would make the additional notes. Right? So you just keep flowing with your communication. And here she's going to come in for a loan app, so then you click follow up and schedule that loan application. So again, there's a little bit more to the calendaring, but I just wanted to give you a quick view on why you would even use ACT for the calendar. It's because everything is connected. Now you might say, how come when I'm making quote unquote notes about somebody, I don't use the notes tab? The reason is that history tab is a lot more sophisticated in how it works, and also a lot more sophisticated in how you can report things out of the history tab. So that's the only reason I choose history. So when I call somebody, I go and click on record history, and that's where I make my notes. This tab is the groups tab, so if they're in a group or if you want to add them to a group, you can do that here by clicking add or remove groups. Secondary contacts have to do with really if you're working with somebody that has an assistant. You don't want to create a whole separate contact with them record form, so you would just click on secondary contact, new secondary contact, and put their assistant's information there. Some of these tabs I'm not going to go over in detail because we're running out of time, but you can peruse those yourself, or I can send you screenshots of what's included in our iLoan system. And if you pull this up, you'll see this is the borrower and co-borrower information. We also have what's called an approval coach interview, so you can keep track of somebody's goals at a high level. And again, because this is for the mortgage industry, we have loan information. Now, something that's important to note here is if I pull all this all the way down, you'll see that here is the LOS file name, so your loan origination software file name. We are also able to, as an option, automatically synchronize your loan origination software to your ACT database. So that is, of course, a very efficient, streamlined approach because you're not having duplicate data entry. If you have any questions about that, please let me know, and I'm happy to go over that with you. If you did have that automatic sync, then all of these types of fields would get filled in automatically by the sync, including loan information, things like your document tracking, loan status for all your milestone updates, and information about your virtual team. So if we go back to, for example, the Jordleen record, there's buying and listing information, loan status information, some document tracking, and loan information, as well as information about the borrower and co-borrower. So at any rate, again, very highly customized for the mortgage industry. The next tab is the Documents tab. Now this one's gotten a lot more exciting and interesting over the years because what you're able to do is you can attach documents to a specific contact's record, and all you have to do is click on the Add button and then click on Add File, and then you can go and browse and find a file that you want to attach to the contact record. So if I want to attach that file, I just click on it and it's attached. Okay, and then you can open that at any time. the reason this has become more exciting is that, especially in the mortgage industry, but a lot of industries, documents have become highly sensitive, and in terms of compliance, the security around documents, it has to be very intense. So a lot of mortgage companies now have very secure, Dropbox and SharePoint and those kind of centralized document storage solutions. So what you're able to do now is, let's say you use Dropbox and you have a verification of employment for Kim Jordling. You can click on Add Link and then right-click that file from Dropbox, and then cut and paste that file here, that file address here, right? And what that'll do is it'll basically store that link on the record, and whenever you go to look for documents that relate to that contact, you're able to do that right from the Documents tab. Okay, the Relationships tab is just like it sounds. It's how you can draw out relationships between different records. So I can relate Kim to Tom Barnett, and I can say that they're family members. And if you want, obviously you can make notes about down here, maybe, Kim is Tom's aunt, right? So you can make these kind of parallels with different people in your database. So when you're talking to somebody, you have the full information. The next tab is the Web Info tab, and I'm actually going to go, well, it's okay, sorry. The Web Info tab, I'm going to pull this up. What happens here is there is a connection to a lot of our, most highly used social media sites. So I clicked on this tab and LinkedIn, and what this does is it automatically will search for whatever name you have here, and it tells me that there's nobody with that name in LinkedIn. You can also click on Facebook. You can click on weather and driving directions, and that's going to all pull up from the driving directions, and weather is all going to pull up from this mailing address information. So, for example, if we went to my record, you're going to see that if I click on LinkedIn, that's me, and there's actually other Donna Quisenberries, it looks like. So, so anyway, and then if I clicked on Google Maps, it's going to pull this address and show you the map. So it's a very convenient way to be linked to social media from an actual contact record. And then social updates, that's the next tab. That's basically a way, so let's say you have somebody named Tom Smith. You're probably going to, if you go to LinkedIn, there's going to be, probably hundreds or thousands of Tom Smith. So you can use the social updates tab to physically link a very specific Facebook or LinkedIn to the record. Contact access, this has to do with security. So if you're a single user, this is not something that applies to you, but if you're working in a team, you might have it set up where I mentioned earlier where, if one user logs in, he can't see another user's records, etc. So that's where all that's handled. Marketing results is a report back from the e-marketing. So I mentioned that's a separate system. And then last but not least is the timeline. Okay, so let this finish accessing. And the timeline is a way for you to put in a date parameter, and it will show you a combination of everything that's been completed for a contact as well as everything that's scheduled for a contact. So it'll show you both open and closed tasks in one place. Okay, so that was, I know it's kind of a quick run through of the tabs. One thing I do want to pull this up, the history, so that I can show you that, one of the most immediate big payoffs of ACT is centralizing your information and collaborating with your team and your customers and strategic partners. So in history, if I scroll down, I'm going to see everything that has been done with or for this customer in history. So if I go down here to October of 2014, that was the initial call to this person. Here's some notes about what we discussed. You'll see here Swift Page email. That's the e-marketing I was talking about. So that shows up this way in your history. And this is also where you can get click reports, and there's different ways to look at click reports for email. So you can see here all these emails that were sent, a call that was completed, and if we go up, we see, when certain fields change. This SMS, this is sending a text message, so that entire message stores in ACT, as well as replies will store in your ACT. And then here's some more calls and more texts, and on and on, right? So, and then emails sent from Outlook are also stored. So to wrap up, I just want to reemphasize that ACT is really a way to add a lot of power to what you're already doing on a day-to-day basis in your business, but it's making it very organized and streamlined, and it interfaces already with the common email and calendaring systems, so you're not reinventing the wheel there. And then it also affords you a really powerful way to do data mining and reports and marketing. So that's session 1. Thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions. We'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much.